What does trigonometry mean? Measure of triangles. Only thing different today from yesterday is yesterday we just practiced finding sides. Today we're going to practice finding angles. So you'll notice the x or the theta or the variable will always be where an angle is. Do you want the method first and then see an example, or do you want an example and then see the method? I figured you might say that. Method. Exactly the same. As finding a side. How's that for a pretty exciting method? How many steps were there yesterday? 5. Did they change? Were there any exceptions? No, exactly the exact same 5 steps. What was step number 1 yesterday? Name the side. Same thing as today. Okay, so find the right angle. Opposite the right angle we call? Check opposite the angle. Do I need to label that side? No. So why do we not label the side up here? Because there's no variable, there's no value there, so we ignore it. So what does the 25 have to be if it's not h and it's not o? A. Okay, so there's step number 1 exactly the same as yesterday. Step number 2 was? Pick the formula. And what's the acronym that we use to memorize the formulas? SOHCAHTOA. Again, it's always up there on my wall, so we're looking for A and H. SOHCAHTOA. COS. So we're writing down the formula. Step number 3 yesterday. Substitute in. I don't have a theta, but what do I have for the angle for this question? X, so I'm just going to put in what the question gave me, which was x. A, H. Step number 4, isolate the variable. And I'm going to grab my red pen because this is the only step that's going to be a little bit different from yesterday. I need to get the x by itself, so I always do the opposite of what we're doing to x. So if we're adding, we end up subtracting. If we're dividing, we end up multiplying. If we're squaring, we end up square rooting. What's the opposite of cos? It's called inverse cos. What's the opposite of cos? It's called inverse cos. So what I'm going to do is what we call take the inverse cos of each side. Watch the notation for inverse cos. It's cos with a little tiny -1. So we're just going to make a note. We call that inverse cos. Keep in mind, mathematicians are really obvious people. What do you think the inverse, or wait, what do you think the opposite of sine is? Inverse sine. Wait for it. What do you think the opposite of tan is? Inverse tan. So take a look at your calculator. Where do you find these on your calc? They're the second function. They're right above what they're matched to. So above sine is inverse sine, above cos is inverse cos, above tan is inverse tan. So on the left-hand side, what happens is an inverse cos cancels a cos. That's why we're doing it. It's to get rid of the cos on the left-hand side. The right, I'm going to type exactly what I see. I need to start with an inverse cos, so that's second function cos. That's too dark. You can't see that. There we go. And then we have 25 divided by 30. Close off the bracket. And x equals to 1 decimal place. 33.5 is the offer. Correction to 33.6. And I'm just going to grab my red pen because we're finding an angle. And what is the unit of measure for any angle? Degrees. So we put the little degree symbol. The only thing that's different from what we did yesterday is this inverse cos stuff. Lexi's like, what is going on here? Once you get the notes and watch the video from yesterday, it'll make more sense. Questions so far? Okay, let's do another one together. Step number 1. Label the side. So find the right angle. Do I need to label the hypotenuse? No. Do I need to label the opposite? Do I need the third side? What do we call it? Step number 2. Choose your formula. SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. Tan, so tan theta equals O over A. Step number 3. Substitute. Okay, do I have an angle value? No, so what do I put? Well, I could put an x, but if we look at the diagram, what have they used to represent the angle? Theta, so it's just going to stay as theta for this question. Lexi's like, they're not even speaking English. No, we're not, we're speaking Greek. Do we have an O? Kate? Do we have an A? There is step number 3. Step number 4. Isolate the variable. What's the opposite of tan? Inverse tan. So I'm going to take the inverse tan of each side. On the left, inverse tan and tan cancel. That's why we did it. On the right, we grab our calculator, inverse tan. 42 divide by, or 0.5, divide by 38.5. .8 units, degrees because it's an angle. Show me your thumb. I'm getting this. I'm kind of getting this. I'm not getting this. Good. You want to try with a friend? Do you feel ready? Okay, try number 3 with a friend. Give you a couple minutes. Do we agree H and O? SOHCAHTOA? Sine? Filling it in? How do I get rid of sine in an equation? What's the opposite of sine? Inverse sine. An offer for theta? Offer 47.1? Oh, 46.1. Correction to 46. Agree? Questions? Okay, the dreaded word problems. Read to read, don't overthink, just read it, send it in a book. What's it about? Slide. That's all you need for the read to read. You just now have a picture in your head. Read to understand. Okay, first sentence, what do we need? Second sentence? Even bolded and italicized, angle of inclination, which is a definition we'll get in a second. So typically with slide questions, we tend to draw them kind of if you're looking at the side of the slide. So there's some kind of ladder, and I'm drawing it really skinny because it's from the side. Some kind of slide going down, and we know that it hits the ground. Why is it important that it's straight? 90-degree angle, plus you don't know how to do when the sides are curved yet. That will come in grade 12. Okay, so 90-degree angle, we hope the ladder makes with the ground, we assume. Where is the 2.2 going to go? Okay, we can already mark that that's H because it's opposite our right angle. Where is the 1.56 going to go? And now we need to mark an angle. What's the definition of an angle of inclination? What does it mean to incline? Go up, something with that. Okay, increase, I like that, more specific. Starts at, and we call that the horizontal, okay, which is a horizontal line, and goes up. So an angle of inclination can look like this. Okay, starts from the ground and goes up on the left-hand side. It can start from the ground and go up on the right-hand side. Just let me finish. It cannot look like this. Why? Because it goes down more specifically. It's not horizontal. This has a vertical line. So it always has to start from a horizontal line. So if we look at our diagram here, where is the horizontal line? Is it the ladder, the slide, or the ground? So I'm going to just highlight that as our horizontal part. So is it the angle at the bottom or the angle at the top? Has to be the bottom because it starts at the horizontal. If they wanted the angle at the top, they would have said, what's the angle between the slide and the ladder? Okay, so inclination always starts with the horizontal. So let's put an x, a theta, some kind of variable, doesn't matter. We need that in order to label the 1.56. 1.56 has to be opposite. Formula? Okay, sub in, we don't have theta, but we do have O, and we have H. How do we get rid of sign in an equation? Inverse sign. $45.2 confirmed. 45.2. Do you see already that the questions are very, very similar? Do you see the 5 steps that are happening over and over and over? Last one, I think last one for today. Yep. Read to read. Don't overthink it. Just get the context. Start picturing what it's going to look like. What's it about? Plane. Okay. What do we need in the first sentence? And for non-sciencey people, what's a synonym for altitude? What does the same thing mean? Height. So if you want to put that in brackets, if that works better in your brain, it's the height of the plane. Second sentence. Bold and italicized angle of elevation, plane target. Okay, so ground. Here's my version of a plane. Don't mock me. Yes, do not mock me, no. What do we know about the elevation of the plane? 4,500 feet. Some kind of target. Typically, what do water bombs target? Fire. Don't mock me, that's fire. And how far is from the plane to the fire? The hardest part of the word problems is trying to figure out which angle. What's the definition of angle of elevation? Well, it's a synonym for angle of inclination. What's the definition of angle of inclination? It starts with a horizontal and goes up. So what I like to do is first find where's the horizontal line in our diagram. It's the ground. There's the horizontal. So where does the angle of elevation have to be? Has to be that angle there. Why can't it be up here near the plane? So why couldn't it be this angle here, Nikita?
Why would 8,000 feet be going from the plane?
because it is referring to the plane from the target. So between the target and the plane. That would be, they would call it the horizontal distance. When it just is the distance from this to this, it's the actual between those two objects. Okay, so let's just talk about why can't the angle of elevation be up here? Because this is a vertical line. So for visual people, it's really helpful if you highlight the horizontal. The angle has to be with the horizontal. So let's put theta there. So let's just define angle of elevation is the exact same thing as angle of inclination. Finish it off. So label the sides, get the formula, substitute in, isolate, solve. What side would you like to call the 4,500? What would you like to call the 8,000? What formula would you like to pick? So subbing in, we have 4,500 over 8,000. What's the opposite of sine? So how do you get rid of a sign in an equation? Inverse sine. And an offer of 34.2. Confirm. There's finding an angle. Show me your thumb. I'm getting it. I'm kind of getting it. I'm not.